Thank you for your interest in the Retained Recruiter show powered by iIntro. Before the show starts, I have a small favour to ask of you. Our goal is to provide you with the most insightful, helpful and practical recruitment knowledge and know-how from the best in the recruitment industry. If you like this channel and enjoy watching our content, hit the subscribe button to get notified as soon as we upload a new episode. Thank you again, and as ever, we're rooting for your success. Now, time for the show. Hello and welcome to the Retained Recruiter show. My name is James and normally I'm accompanied by Joe, but Joe is having a well-earned holiday now that the children are back at school. She's gone on holiday, so she'll be back with us next time. Actually, she doesn't know this, but in 2 weeks' time, she'll be doing the show and I won't be here. But anyway, I'm delighted today to be joined by a very special guest, my friend and colleague, Plamen Ivanov, chairman and co-founder of iIntro, with a long illustrious history and career in a number of things. But today we've got a very important topic that we're talking about, which is ultimately how to help you turn new employee attrition into revenue. So we will be getting to that, and we've got some really important topics we're going to cover about. But before we get started, I'll allow Plamen to introduce himself. And Plamen, what I'd like you to do is really talk to people today and just tell them, just give me a little bit of your views on what's changing in the markets and why people need to make some significant changes to what they're doing right now today. So go.
Well, thanks for the invite. I'm delighted to be here. I'm not one of these smooth presenters, so you need to bear with me. But hopefully, with the efforts that I'm about to make here, it'll all make sense. As James already said, some of you might already know me. My name is Plamen Ivanov. I'm the co-founder of a recruitment business called Grass Greener, as well as iIntro, which James and I and my colleague Paul Hickey launched at around 2014-15 onwards. Since the launch, iIntro has been a major influencer in the market in terms of the service solution that we always call personal or consultative service, and we've helped over 350 recruitment firms around the world and counting to transition from contingency to retain by adding a value-add proposition. Is this good enough introduction?
Yeah, come on. I want to talk about why the recruitment industry is changing. I want you to sort of share me your thoughts on that, please.
Well, I'm a one-dimensional I've got a one-dimensional belief, and this started some time ago, which is at the beginning of when we started to offer the services of iIntro. And in 2017, February, I published my very first ebook. It's a small ebook which is available on our website. It's called The Death of Contingency Recruitment. Now, I've been criticized, vilified, and everything else since the beginning, because there was very few people that believe that something will change in the industry. And we've seen not only advancement in technology, but we've also seen, especially over the past 12 months, and typically the last 6-8 months, we've seen a dramatic change in the industry with the arrival of AI. And in a typical manner, most people will jump on the bandwagon, as we call it. So everybody's looking at tech stacks, reviewing tech stacks, and what do I need to do to add some AI so I can look up to date? But regardless of everything, recruitment is a people's business. And until AI comes to prevail, this will remain to be the case. I guess the topic really is, what can we do and what have we done to position our service in a way that it's still prevalent in the marketplace against all this, avalanche of AI technology. And on that basis, I suppose that what we are about to discuss today will probably show you that there is another way. Becoming personal and enhancing personal relationships is really what it's about. And we've sometimes seems to have forgotten that AI is a direction, but it's not everything.
Well, I think you're right there, Plant. It's not everything. I mean, the world is shifting due to AI, and it's shifting and moving at a phenomenal pace. I think that's undoubted, and you can't ignore it. But what we've got to do is find ways to work alongside it, because the big benefits of AI are improving efficiencies within organizations. And we'll talk a little bit later about how that's going to sort of replace certain activities which are critical to the conversation we're going to have today. But the reality is, you can't just stick your head in the sand and think it's going to pass you by. This is not a fad. This is the future. So we do have to adapt that. But what we've got to learn to do is figure out how can we work alongside AI, and how can we look at the areas where we can add, forgive the cliche, where we can add true value. And that's the piece that we've got to get to. So I think what we're trying to get to here, Plumman, is the fact that, and I want your views on this, the fact is, the world, as you looked at it back in 2017, and as you said, you were vilified at the time. It's histrionic histrionics in terms of saying, oh, it's a death of contingency. But that there is an argument for that truly coming into force, isn't it? The world of transactional has got to move. It must change. So expand on that one a little bit, if you could.
I mean, if you think of it, the typical process. I mean, just think of it from the point of view of a client. How does the client perceive recruiters and the service that they deliver? And if I could oversimplify it, the process is as follows. A client has a need. They need to recruit a particular role. They've got various options. One of them is using recruitment services. They'll go to either known recruiters or unknown recruiters, and they'll possibly select not only one, in some instances more than one. They'll give these roles to people, and these people will go out there, the recruiters, and try and identify as fast as possible potentially suitable candidates. They'll no doubt use it these days AI. So they'll go and find as quickly as possible the best possible matches for this particular role, and they'll supply it to the client. Now, if you just think of it, if you strip all the noise, this is a very transactional process.
Mm-hmm.
i.e., client has a need, a recruiter goes out to market, finds some solutions for the particular need, and delivers them to the client. And that's the transaction, broadly speaking, over. I know that we could dress it up by saying that we are involved in negotiation with the people, etc. But essentially, once we found the product and put it into the marketplace with a particular client, that's our job done.
Yeah.
Now, AI can do this one much better, i.e., faster, less expensive, etc.
Yeah.
So where does that leave the majority of the recruiters out there that are doing exactly the same thing? They're working with an ever-diminishing value product. So what's the alternative? If you think of it, the alternative is to be able to go with a product to the client where you tackle the three most relevant things for clients within the recruitment space, i.e., their time involved in the recruitment process. I'd call it commercial downtime. The second one is accuracy of hire. The ultimate objective is to hire accurately. And the third one is cost of hire, overall cost to hire. So if you could find a service solution that you can evidence to the client that tackles all these three things better than what the client's current experience is, you've got a very, very good opportunity to be able to capture the client's attention. Not only to capture the client's attention, but to lock yourself in as a true service partner for the client, because the clients will be happy to pay a little bit more and give you the job, providing they can demonstrate all these three things. Now, today, we're not going to talk about 1 and 2. We're going to talk about number 3. But once again, the premise is before you're able to win a client in a way that no others can do, is you need to have a service proposition that is quantifiably better than anybody else. And I believe that iIntro has this service proposition.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And I think, the reality is when we talk about the service that's offered by recruiters at the moment, it may be expedient for employers to engage a recruiter to go find, source candidates through CVs, resumes, whatever it may be. But that is going to be a diminishing value proposition. And it's therefore how do you protect your position and extend your position in the market. So we will get around to talking about it. And I think part of the conversations that we're hearing people talk about this moment in time is, with all AI, we're hearing people talk about the fact that they're reviewing their tech stack. Yeah. So, and I think one of the things that we both share some common ground on is that whilst people are reviewing their tech stacks, they're not reviewing their relationship models. Because
100%.
the personal doesn't. The business of recruitment is done in person, on Zoom or Teams, whatever it may be, of course, nowadays. But ideally, we're in a contact sport, so we're going to talk about that. But I want to move it on now, Plum. I want to bring around to the topic. So, I think that was a good little preamble to sort of let people understand where we're coming from on this one. But what I want to talk today is about how we monetize employer retention rates through what we call a recruitment process audit, which is part of the iIntro process. And one of the things we're going to do is going to give you a special offer later on today. So we're going to sort of share with you how we're going to give you something essentially free of charge, but you're going to need to stay with us till the end on that one. So, Plum, I think it's sort of time to share, where people are at. So if you listen to it, so, the topic is, how you monetize that one. And it's about understanding where, first of all, you as a recruiter, and what I want you to do is I want you to, this is going to be rhetorical, Plum, and so I don't need you, but I think you can probably play along with me here with regards to answering this as if you're a recruiter working there. I want you to go back to 2023 or 2024 and think about 10 placements that you made as a recruiter. As a recruiter, think of 10 placements. Yeah. So ask yourself this question and answer this one honestly. How many of those people were still in the job that you placed them in 12 months later? Now, Plumber, what do recruiters normally say to us when we ask that question?
Probably all of them, but they might have some gaps. Yeah.
Well, the point is they often do say all of them. Now, that's really important because it's really impressive. Because if you're listening to this today already, you're already a very, very good and strong, efficient recruiter. You've got a great service proposition. The people you place typically stay. And literally, I did this process with a live group of audience up in Edinburgh last week. And I got exactly that answer, Plum. And, I know that we didn't rehearse that particular bit. So I'm glad you said the same, nearly all of them. And 9 or 10 out of 10 was the answer I got there. So really impressive. And that is because you're good at what you do. Yeah. Now, unfortunately for you, or no, fortunately, not unfortunately, fortunately for you, the market is not as good as that one. Yeah. You'll find that actually the market, when we come around to challenging that and putting that question into another way in a moment's time, actually moves people on. But the other thing I want to ask is, what's your typical, and again, Plum, and I'm asking you to give me what I think is the answer, but what's the typical rebate or replacement clause that recruiters offer to their clients?
Well, the typical will probably be up to 3 months, either free replacements or a scaled down replacement policy, a rebate policy or a replacement up to 3 months.
Now, Plum, I want you to share some stats with me now. So I'm sort of move sides on this one. I want you to tell me, what the stats, where you've got them from, and I can support you if you can't get to these. But what are the stats for out there in the employer world when we ask them those questions? What's your new employee retention rate? When you make a hire, how many you can get through to the end of their first year or first 18 months?
Okay, just to pre-frame my answer. There is a well-known study commissioned by the Recruitment and Employment Confederation, which was published some time ago. Mm-hmm. And this study typically focuses on the true cost of bad hire. This study was actually done with the input of over 500 HR professionals and industry leaders. Mm-hmm. So the data sample is fairly sufficient for it to be credible. Now, in addition to that, 2 days ago, I ran a search on ChatGPT, and I deeply just sort of involved the conversation much deeper to find out what's the current most relevant statistics on the current attrition rates in the marketplace around the world. The US came worse with 40, as high as 40%.
Mm-hmm. Does that mean 40% of new hires?
40% of new hires don't make it to the end of their first anniversary. Now, once again, that's across the board, and it's depends on industry to industry, but essentially it's fairly high. Mm-hmm. UK and Europe came at approximately 20%. So if you actually take a snapshot, the true answer is for employers is that if they've hired someone, whether through recruitment, through internal process, or through other ways, essentially 20% of people roughly 20 to 30% of people will not make it to their first 12 months anniversary.
Right.
That means that they need to have been hired in August 2023 to have had the count to August 2024 for us to actually acknowledge exactly the 12 months gap.
Yeah.
But so in this period of time, 20% will drop out. Now, what's the conclusion on that?
Are you asking me the question?
Yeah, well,
the conclusion is listen, there's various stats, and those REC stats are fantastic. There's also a piece of research done by Leadership IQ, which shows that 46% of new hires in the US fail in the first 18 months. And again, the REC study itself said that 2 in 5, 40% of people, leave within the first 18 months. Now, what do I want you to get out of that listening to this? You just told me, in inverted commas, that actually nearly all of your hires stay. So there's a gap here. That gap analysis, if employers are losing 20% in the UK to up to 40% in the UK, yet you're actually, all of your hires stay, you could consider how could you monetize that? Because most recruiters we meet are not using that to show the client that they actually have a better value proposition.
yes.
So we're going to help you to sort of, pull that one forward through that, because you're already better than the client's current hiring processes. Yeah. And again, this is across the piece here. It's not just one of your clients or whatever. And this isn't a debate you'll have with the clients you're working with. This is how you go out and win new business, how you implement a business development strategy to win new work, which is what it's about. So you've got to, first of all, acknowledge you're already very good, but you have to find a way to get your client to acknowledge those statistics that Plum just mentioned. So Plum, what are some of the questions we could use to pull that out of the client in a nice way?
Well, typically, if I have the opportunity to pitch to a client, my process will be first to establish what's their commercial objective behind the recruitment process. The purpose of this one is ultimately to actually get not just focus on the transaction of recruiting a person, but ultimately as to what it means for the client to achieve their commercial objectives through human capital acquisition. The importance of recruitment is very high. And if a client thinks that the average attrition rate is 20 to 30%, they accept it as given and they say, well, if we had 10 people, we'll probably lose 3 and that's okay, because that's how it is.
Yeah.
So you need to firstly establish what the client wants to achieve, how important it is for them to achieve it, and what are the consequences of not achieving that to the expectations that they have. There are consequences, but you need to get the client to be vested in the process by way of letting them think as to what might happen if they don't get it right.
Yeah.
So the second step is ultimately to demonstrate to them.
Well, before you do that, so I just want to jump back onto that point, because you talk consequence of hiring somebody. Yeah, and the reality is, every employer, when they enter into the process to say I need to hire somebody, they don't go into the process. They're hiring permanently. They don't say I'm going to hire somebody, and they don't deliberately set out to lose 2 or 3 out of every 10 hires.
No.
They're looking to hire rock stars to come into their business. And particularly the level that we work at, which is typically 50k in the UK and above, 70, 80k and above in the US, in terms of those type of roles, people aren't looking for short-term hires. They're looking to hire people for a very specific reason. Yeah. And what we're saying there, Plum, is in the qualification process, and we help people with this. So again, if you want to know how we can help you, there's going to be a little banner popping up in a moment. If you want to book some time with us, please book some time with us. We'll tell you how we do this. And Plum, I don't remember, we did a call with a guy called David Perry from Perry Martell in Canada. Great guy, and he talked extensively about the impact of getting the consequence, because once you've established that, then things just all fall into place afterwards, particularly things like your fees, for example. So we go into that. So Florence, I just wanted to go back over that particular point. Go on to the next one. What's your second point that you're going to go into?
Well, once you've actually engaged with the client and established how important it is for them to get it right, the next step is to ultimately to be able to demonstrate with evidence, and using this particular process that we've got, what we call the bad hire calculator, is to quantifiably demonstrate to them what's the true cost of their current hire. And then we are showing them what this might be with an improved process. Now, it's important for us to actually mention that the methodology which iIntro has adopted in this consultative process has a data sample of over 7,000 roles and counting, that have been placed using the same process. And one common denominator is that the retention rate of over 12 months for amongst these all 7,000 roles and counting is 96% plus, which means that if a client has a 70-80% retention rate, to move the client from 70 to 80% retention to as high as 96%, it's a common sense to think that you'll save money.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not only do we actually search for common sense, but we quantifiably demonstrate to the client what is the actual saving. And that has a major impact on your continuous communication from this moment on. Not only do we show the clients how important it is for them to actually hire accurately, we show them in a quantifiable way what it's cost them to hire the way they do and the way they might be able to by using us. And then thirdly, we offer them the service solution using this bad hire calculator, which James is talking about.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. So one of the things I think we need to do is get the client to tell us where their current situation is, because as you said, Blyman, implicitly they're losing 2 or 3 people and it's become the norm. But you have to get them to acknowledge that. So the question you need to ask the clients is, of the last 10 people you hired, how many reached or do you expect to reach their first year anniversary?
Yeah.
And they will, we've done this thousands of times. And so I urge you, if you listen to this, try this out next time you talk to one of your clients. Ask them that question. Now, a couple of things are going to happen. First of all, they actually probably don't know. Yeah. But when they think about it, say, what's your best estimate? They're going to give you what we call a psychologically safe number. And that number is 7 or 8 out of 10. And congratulate them. That's what you got to do. Well done. That's better than many organizations. And that's because they're probably lying. But the reality is they're acknowledging that they lose 20 to 30% of staff. That's what they've just told you. Not in that way, but that's what they've told you.
And they're statistically accurate.
Yeah. And so that's what all the stats sort of stack up to that. And then one of the questions you can ask them, which is a killer question, and we're happy to share this with you right now, is there any other process in your business right now, today, that fails 20 to 30% of the time, that you just leave it running? And the answer is, of course not. They don't do it. But because it's people, which is, a little bit softer, they've got no way to evidence that. So when you bring in that statistic that Palmer just mentioned, 96% of the people we place, because we have a different process, a different methodology, are still enrolled 1 year later. Now you're starting to show them where you can add value, because they will soon figure out, and we'll show them using the bad hire calculator. Yeah, and the bad hire calculator uses 5 data points. Yeah, simple 5 data points. Input them into the calculator, and it'll estimate a cost to the client of how much money they're currently wasting. And they're wasting because they're losing 20 to 30% of their staff. And if you bring that attrition down from 20 to 30% down to as little as 4 or better, then that's where you can sort of show them, demonstrably that you can, do it more cost effectively than their current process, because they are burning money like you wouldn't believe. Plum, what are the stats from REC as a typical one? I know there are different studies that do this. KPMG do one, but what do the REC say that the cost of losing somebody in the first 12 months was?
Well, the RECs, this is a well-known fact for some of the UK recruitment firms, but 3 times salary plus, depending on the seniority of the roles. As a matter of fact, I just ran the same research on ChatGPT, asking as to what are the consequences of hiring a 20 to 30% attrition rates, and the answers were very clear. In the US, they're suggesting sometimes 200-300% of salary value.
Yeah. So it's significant. The point is, it's significant.
Significant is the word, if we generalize it, yes.
And one of the other things that came from that piece of research done by the REC is 20% of people hiring have got no idea that there is a cost. They just think they just think it's the recruitment fee, which obviously puts the onus on the recruiter. Because, by the way, when those people leave, the good news is that's the opportunity for a new recruiter to get in, because they don't like the old recruiter. They've got to blame somebody, and they're not going to blame themselves. So you've got to do that. Yeah. So now what I want you to do is take this on a little bit. I want you to think, not you, Plumber, but the people listening today, you're a great recruiter. Yeah. So how can you show the client, how can you put your money where your mouth is? Yeah. And Plumber, how we do that. So, what I'm saying to you, you rarely, if ever, have to replace, because your rebate is only 3 months, but everybody stays, according to what you've just told us, everybody stays 12 months. Yeah. Most of your replacements stick around for 12 months. So what would you do, Plum? And if most of your placements stick around for 12 months, how would you monetize that to a client?
Well, I'll extend the risk reversal to the client by, my own recruitment firm offers probably one of the highest replacement policies that we've got in the marketplace, and that's 24 months.
Yeah, but what's a more standard?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
What's a more standard one that we normally talk about?
Most recruitment firms that use iIntro offer up to 12 months free replacement.
Now that's crazy, isn't it? I mean, it's why would people do that?
I mean, very simple logic. The simple maths is if you've got 96% retention, your likelihood of you having to replace is only 4%, which is minuscule. And considering that you're offering value-add service proposition, you're very likely to charge higher fees. Most of our recruitment firms that win business and that operate under the iIntro umbrella do exactly that. So they offer up to 12 months free replacement, and in return, they charge higher fees, typically 25% plus. So if you place some at 12 months replacement, and they don't have to be all of them 12 months replacement, that's also part of the negotiation process. It could be 6 months replacement. But long story short is if you offer 12 months replacement with 96% retention at higher fees of say 20 to 30% higher, that means that you probably compensate yourself much better to offer the 12 months replacement and the peace of mind that the client deserves than having to work on it 3 months. And
I mean, what you're giving is you are giving the client a couple of things. You're giving them a lot of confidence in your service because you're backing it up with that recruitment risk reversal policy. Because they're losing 20 to 30% of the staff. They've just told you that. They know that. If you're saying you're going to reduce that to zero, you're going to cover it for them through one way or another. So what that makes you is all of a sudden you move from that transactional supplier to a consultative partner, and that makes you very sticky. The second thing is, in terms of statistically, when you work this out, 96% is 24 out of 25. So 24 out of every 25 placements, you're going to lose one. But what happens is that client who loses one, they come back and say, is it really true? I lost this person after 9 months. They walked out. You'll replace them free of charge. Absolutely. You can afford to do that work for free of charge because it makes it super sticky and it locks in the client. Part of what our liquid cement strategy is, that we sometimes talk about as well, brings that one in. So you're going to get a much better return on your effort. And we did some number crunching, so you'll probably do your own number crunching. But if you're working on a transactional basis, at best your fill rate is 1 in 3. Statistically, we find it's 1 in 5. And a great stat, and I'll find this stat. Who gave me this stat last week up in Edinburgh? A guy who does a lot of research work. I've just forgotten his name, which hurts me. Apologies at a senior moment. But he's done some analysis. He does lots of analysis on CRMs. And actually, the fill rate is 8%. 8%. People don't believe it, but that's what the CRMs tell you. So if you're working contingently and transactionally, you're working on a huge amount of roles for free anyway. So what's another one that you could do from that side of things? So the reality is, if you're working transactionally, and just some numbers, I'm placing 15 people on a transactional basis in terms of the amount of work you're on, your return on your effort goes from 7% to 100%, and your fee increases that you'll get because you're going to be being paid better for what you do. You'll make yourself an extra 100 grand. And you're working smarter, you're working more efficiently, you're not so stressed because you're putting in quality work in terms of what we do. Now, a lot of what we do is, you can see that, and we actually share with people a 5-part masterclass. It gives you an indication, an inkling of what we do. If you want to access the masterclass, just go to our website, which is www.i-intro.com. Wait there a couple of seconds, and up will pop a box. It's totally free. So jump in and have a look at that particular piece from those side of things. So I think, what we're trying to say here is the way that you start to look at monetizing, the employee attrition rates that happen in the commercial world is to work out what you're doing, and if you're up there 9 out of 10, then 9 or 10 out of 10, you're not monetizing it. You haven't found a way to do that. We'll help you do that. So we'll help you do that particular. But by monetizing it, you actually become much stickier with the client. You offer a much better value proposition. You become the trusted advisor because you're genuine in caring for what the client wants to do.
James.
Yeah.
I have a suggestion here. I know it's something that we're probably not prepared for, but would it make sense for us to actually show the audience the link to the what we call it, the Good Hire agency, and essentially to get people to try it? Now, if you complete this one, provided James can actually do it, if we can actually get people a practical example, and this is the US Good Hire link. The reason is that I've noticed that there's quite a lot of people from the US that have registered for this webinar. That will show you the principles and give you the narrative as to how our calculation is done based on whatever the clients might be, either 70, 80% retention versus 96% retention, to see the difference. The algorithms that calculate this one on the left and the right side column of the comparison will be exactly the same. The only difference is the actual true cost of hire.
Yeah. Can you see the screen, Plummer? I should be sharing.
I can see the screen. I don't see the URL.
Okay, well, if you can't see the URL, unfortunately, I can't.
Let me just say what the URL is, perhaps, or we can actually write it out.
Well, we'll put it in the comments box. We'll put the
okay, let's do that. I mean, I've posted it on our internal chat system there.
Yeah.
sci-intro.usgoodhire.agency, but let's try it.
Yeah, well, listen, you can see it on screen. So there's 5 data points here. How many people have you hired in the last 12 months? How many do you expect to still be there? So, this is where you can do your 10 and your 7.
Yeah, that's right. Run it, James. Let's see.
Of the people who left, what was their average salary? So let's just put in $100,000. That's an annual salary, of course. How many months did they stay? Again, these are questions you'll ask a client. We train you on how to do this in terms of put this into place. I'm rushing through this. So let's say they stayed 8 months. And what was the average recruiter fee? Well, let's say it's 22%. You'll calculate this, and this is where you guys who are going to complete this put in your details there. So I'm going to put mine in. So James O'Brien, I-intro. Put my email address, james@i-intro.com, and I don't want to be collecting those. So from that, and it generates a report, and this report will show you what your retention rate is. This is nice and easy, 70%. It'll talk about the direct cost. Now, this is based on that third-party independent research that Plum talked about. It's a big number. And obviously, we'll talk you through how you present this to your client. But the number gets bigger because that's the direct cost. That's the money they've actually spent. The indirect costs are even more significant. And what this shows you is, those 3 hires that you left out, 3 hires that you lost at $100,000. Each hire costs $335. That's 3.3 times salary. Yeah. Now, how much can we save you? Well, we work on 96%. So we use the same statistics, the same algorithm as creating these calculations. And as I said, you're already up there at this moment in time. So what would be the direct cost with us? There's still some costs. We've got recruitment fees to charge, of course. Now, our recruitment fees are lower because this one over here includes a replacement. Because if someone leaves after 8 months, the recruiter's not going to do it free of charge. They're going to charge another fee. We charge higher fees. This is set at 27%, as you can see here. It's 327s or 81. That's a slightly higher fee here. But you've got a substantial reduction on both the direct and indirect, because when you've got a more cohesive team, you're not likely to lose all the indirect costs. So we can make huge savings. And what we can help you do is show you how you can deliver that service. Now, Plum, what I'd like to do, I'll just stop sharing the screen there. What I'd like to do is suggest that if we just put up the slide the banner to book a call with us, I'd like us to offer that, a free calculator, branded, a branded calculator. We'll brand it in your brand, so it's your style. We'll generate the report, but fill it in yourself. Have a look at the report that comes out. Imagine that in your colors, and that going out to your prospects and your clients. So anybody who books a meeting with us this month in September, they book a meeting with us on that. We will provide you for the rest of the year. We'll give you a free calculator as part of our gift for you actually sort of attending to a call with us. So we'll work on that one. Anything else to add, Simon?
Yeah, that's, everybody's, once again, I'll just finish with what I've started. The world of recruitment is changing, and remaining personable with your clients is the key for your extension of the service solution instead of AI. Most people are looking at AI and they're reviewing their tech stacks as to how they can compete with the technology moving forward. What we're saying is that, of course, it's important to adopt some of the tools, but the personal relationship that is at the fundamental part of recruitment services, in order for it to be maintained, you need to have something that represents true value and you're able to prove it. Now, one of these elements that we've just demonstrated to you, the Bad Hire Calculator, is probably a clear point that demonstrates that there is a service, if engaged well with the client, ultimately they'll pay attention to you, because clients don't want to waste time. They don't want to focus on anything else but their own business, and they want to save money. So if you come as a service provider that tackles these three things, instead of a client, better than the client, and in a more cost-effective way than the client, and you can prove that, then you will have their business. Full stop.
Exactly. Listen, Plum, it's a whistle-stop tour. There's so much to unwrap in all of this one. I hope people have the chance to listen back at their inconvenience, but we do want them to get in touch with us so we can actually share that. And they'll meet with either you or I, depending on whose diary is available. So if you go to that retainedcall.com that was just up there earlier, it'll book into our diaries, it'll book a meeting with us, and we will share it. So listen, today we've, I say, had a whistle-stop tour of how to turn new employee attrition into revenue. I hope you found out that there's a market there for you to exploit. It's one that you can dig into, where you can add value to the client because you can demonstrably show them that your service is better than everybody else's. And that's how you monetize it. So, Plum, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure as always. We'll look forward. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time. As I said, Jo doesn't know it, but she's by herself. But we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. So look out for our next show, our next episode. But if you ever do need to get into it. And by the way, I'm just going to make a little plug for another podcast. So go to your normal podcast providers and look out for the 96% podcast. Have a look for that one. That'll be some enticing information for you. So please do look out for that one. So that's a little plug there for our friend Lisa Thomas over in America.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye from me.
Lisa.